Hi, this is Kat at inkingpaperwithkat.com. Today is part 3 in the series of Wrapped in the Warmth of Christmas. In part 1, we made the gift cards. In part 2, we made the tags. And today we are going to make this little box that will hold both of those things so that you can give this as a set to someone special. Now, because I've been taking this belly band on and off while I've been videotaping, I've discovered that this box needs some reinforcement, and we're going to address that today and fix that problem. For the project, you need a piece of garden green that is 4.5 by 10. You need 2 pieces of garden green that are 2.5 by 8.5. You need a piece of cherry cobbler that is 3.5 by 3.25. Piece of DSP that's 3.25 by 3. A strip of DSP that's 1.5 by 11. This is 1.5 by 12, but we're going to cut it down. You also need a 3x4 piece of Whisper White for stamping and a 3x4 piece of garden green to die cut our stitched oval. First thing we're going to do is get out our Simply scoreboard, and we are going to score the largest piece of cardstock, which is 10 by 4.5. And we are going to score it at 4.25 and 5.75. Now we're going to score it at 1/2 inch, turn, again 1/2 inch, turn, 1/2 inch, turn, and 1/2 inch. So you have a 1/2 inch score line on all 4 sides. Now let's take the 2 smaller pieces that are 2.5 by 8.5, and we are going to score at 3/4, 4, 4 3/4, and 8. Turn it to the short side and score at 3/4. We do the exact same thing on both pieces. So 3/4, 4, 4 3/4, and 8. Short side, 3/4. Alright, that's all of our scoring. Alright, before we fold and burnish, no, let's fold and burnish first. It'll be easier for you to see what I'm doing. So fold and burnish all of these score lines. Now this is the type of a project that I actually am going to make several of for this season to give as gifts early on in the season, probably at a tree decorating party, so that people have the tags and the gift cards to use when they're wrapping their gifts. So I would do each step on all of the pieces before I went on to the next step. So we're going to fold and burnish both of these little boxes. Before we go on to cutting. Now this project is a great one to do with your kids because especially the little tags are really simple to do. The cards are really easy to do. This might be more complex maybe for an older child, but they could really help you get some of these done, and it would be a nice thing to give to their teachers at Christmas time. All right, now we're going to do some cutting. We need to have a miter cut on these corners. If you go like this, make sure you can see that, where we're just going across this X, you've mitered the corner. That's all of the cutting on that box. So let's use Fast Fuse. And you're going to put it on all 4 of those tabs. And try to get right to the end. You could also use tear and tape or Tombow. And then just fold those down, and I give them some pressure and really make sure they're adhered well. And by mitering the corners, you get a really nice finish. Now, do go back and reinforce these folds because you've added material in there, and you want to make sure that that fold is going to hold. All right, let's put our little boxes together. On each end you have rectangles. One is narrower than the other. The narrow one is the one that we use to glue the box together. There's a small rectangle at the bottom. You want to take that out. Cut up each of the score lines. And I like to take just a little bit of a wedge out of the small tabs so that it closes easily. And we're going to do that on both of the boxes. So again, remove that little rectangle, cut up each of the score lines, take your wedge, you can also take a small wedge out of the top of that tab. All right, to put this together, we're going to run Fast Fuse along the tab. Bring your sides in, your back in, and then Fast Fuse on the tab. Make sure it's nice and squared up. You might want to use your bone folder and just rub on the inside to make sure that that's adhered. We'll do the same thing on the other small box. And you can see these actually go together quite quickly. Alright, so these 2 little boxes are going to fit inside of the book cover, if you will. I think that it is easier to use Tombow at this point, mainly because you may need to slide this around a little bit so that you can get it positioned right where you want it. So Tombow on both of them. And you don't want it all the way to the bottom. You want a little bit of a lip down there. And don't worry if you get some glue. It's going to dry clear. You're not going to see it. Use your bone folder to smooth it down, and then it closes like that. So we'll put that off to the side to dry while we do some stamping and getting things ready for the decorations. The stamp set I'm using is Snowflake Sentiments, and I'm using the Wrapped in Warmth sentiment. I'm going to use Garden Green today. And I'm going to center it because we're going to do some die cutting on this. And I want to make sure I have room around it. Alright, try it again. There's always a backside. Don't be afraid to use your backside. There we go, that's better. Alright, let's get the Big Shot out. You need your magnetic platform, a cutting pad, and we're using the stitch shaped framelits. We're using the oval ones, and we're using the 2 largest sizes. So first we're going to put down our sentiment and center the framelit around it, and then we're using our Garden Green with the other one. And it's perfectly alright to cut both at the same time. Alright, let's move the Big Shot out of the way. That. Make sure you put your framelits away. They do tend to get lost pretty easy. Alright, we want to pop this up with some dimensionals. And we want to center it. Attach our DSP to the cardstock. For that you can use snail. You don't need to use fast fuse. It's up to you. If it's a directional pattern like this is, make sure you've got it going in the direction you want it. Center that. Let's bring our box back in. This now gets adhered to our box, and for that we are going to use fast fuse because it's cardstock to cardstock. Kind of a good rule of thumb. You could also use Tombow, or you could use double-sided tape. It's all up to you. And we want to center this. Sure it's nice and straight. Okay, now we need to put on our belly band. So what I do is I get my box, I lay my belly band around it, and crease crease. And because this one will push in, you see that at the top? In order to make sure it's correct, I now turn this around and get it lined back up, and then I bring it around. Alright, once you've got those little pinch marks in, you can go back, make sure the edges are lined up, and give it a good crease. You really don't need to use your bone folder, your fingers will do it on this DSP, but you certainly can if you want. You could measure this out and you could score it as well. Now you can see, I told you this is needed about an 8.5 by 11. And so what you can do is cut off some of the excess. Fast fuse on. This is also the directional pattern, so make sure it's going the right direction, not the wrong one like I almost did. And make sure you're all lined up. And then you do want to remember that you want to attach this to the belly band, not to the body, because then the belly band would not come off. So you want to put your dimensionals down the middle of this, and I use 3 of them because I want it to be pretty secure. Because it is a belly band that people are probably going to take on and off several times as they're using the supplies on the inside, and you want it to hold up. Well, let's make sure this is centered. That on. Alright, let's get out what we did in parts 1 and 2 and add them to our box. We had our little tags, which just slide in here. And as you can tell, this will hold a lot of little tags. So you could really put as many as you wanted in here. And then we have our envelopes and our little gift cards, which I want to make sure are all lined up correctly. And those fit right inside. Now 6 gift cards with envelopes is probably about the max you're going to get in there. If you didn't use any dimensionals, you might get another one. And close that up. Slide on our belly band. Get it in the center. And there you have it. Wrapped in the warmth of Christmas. A nice gift for a special friend or family member. They'll use it all season long and think about you. I hope you enjoyed this 3-part project. Let me know. You can certainly leave a comment on YouTube, or you can go to my blog, inkingpaperwithkat.com, and leave a comment and let me know what you think of 3-part projects. Thanks.